everybody, and welcome back to the Girl or Go Bookworm. So today I have my March wrap up for you. March ended up being pretty phenomenal for me. I ended up reading 15 books in the month of March. That's the most I've read in a month in a long time. And I think it's crazy because I had a whole bad reading week at one point. I finished a book March 17th, and I did not finish another one again until March 24th. So I have no idea how I was able to accomplish this, and I even DNF'd one. So technically, I could have had 16 if I put my mind to it. I could have even had more if I didn't have that crazy off reading week. I went through that phase of when coronavirus first started that I just could not focus on anything to save my life, and then all of a sudden it just clicked and I was just able to read, and it was fantastic. But I cannot believe I got through 15 books, and for the most part I loved basically everything. There's only one book that I hated, and then I had a pretty decent month. So we're just gonna get right into it. The first book I read, guys, you're gonna be so proud of me. I finally read The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. Basically, I have been recommended this book for ever, it feels like. And it's been all over BookTube again because the second book just came out, and it's been all over Bookstagram. So I was like, it's finally my time. I'm going to finally get to it. And so when I didn't get to it in February, I knew it had to be my first read of March. And I'm so glad that I got to it. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. This follows Jonah and Calla's love story. Calla has basically grown up with her mom because her mom fell in love with an Alaskan pilot, and he couldn't give up his life and she couldn't give up hers, so she just kind of ended up leaving him, taking Calla with her. And now it's so many years later, and Calla's father is dying. And so she's got to fly out to Alaska, and she is not an Alaskan girl by any means. She's very into her heels and things like that. So when she gets there, she's kind of in for a rude awakening. And really enjoyed this. Bawled my bloody eyes out like I knew I would, but totally worth it. And I ended up giving it 5 stars. Then I read Sparrow by Mary Cecilia Jackson. I was sent this kindly from Tortine, and I really enjoyed this one as well. I gave this one 4.5 stars, and this is a YA novel which kind of follows a girl named Sparrow. She's a ballerina. She's about to enter her senior year. Life should be good for her. Her mom has passed away, so she kind of feels like this is finally my moment to shine. I could leave all my darkness behind me, and here I am. I'm going to be so successful. Something happens to her that kind of derails that completely. I don't want to spoil too much, but I will say that there is a trigger warning for domestic violence. It does get very gruesome and detailed. So if that's going to be a trigger for you, I would definitely pass on that. I did really enjoy this one, though. Like I said, Sparrow, you follow her for a good chunk of time, and then you kind of hit a rewind button and go back, and you follow Lucas, which is her best friend's perspective. So I liked that it gave you not only what Sparrow is going through from her inside perspective, but you also got the outside perspective looking in from her friend. So I did find that to be very well done, and I did enjoy this one a lot, and highly recommend you check this one out. This one came out in March as well. Then I read The Fifth Avenue Story Society by Rachel Hawk. This came out in February, and so part of I need to read all my pre-orders within a timely fashion. I got to this one, so I'm really proud of myself. This one, I went into it knowing nothing. I just knew that it was Rachel Hawk, and I had to. It's a Christian fiction novel. Only one of the characters in here really goes through a Christian coming to Christianity moment, I guess you can say. So it's not heavily in here, but it's definitely a part. This one, I would say, I would recommend you read The Writing Desk and then read this one. They are not complete, first book, second book in a series, but it would help you to know what's going on in The Writing Desk to help you enjoy this one. I didn't make The Writing Desk connection until I was really far into this, and I was like, darn it, I wish I reread The Writing Desk so that way I got the full of this book. So I did end up giving it 4.5 stars just because I missed that. This is about a bunch of people who are kind of going in different places in their life going on, and then they get a secret invitation and they don't know who it's from to meet at this Fifth Avenue, this building on Fifth Avenue, at this library for this society meeting that nobody knows who invited them. No one knows why they're together, and they kind of keep coming together and meeting because they want to figure it out, and they make such a bond and a connection for people who are coming from different walks of life. And I found it a really, really good story, and again, obviously I love Rachel Hawk, so I'm excited to see what she comes out with next, but this was a nice addition to her already amazing collection of books that she writes. Then I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a book of the month book that I just chose in March and read right away. So this one is a YA novel following Pip, and in her town there was a pretty girl who was murdered, and it's now years later. At the time, they felt like they knew exactly who did it. Everybody was like, it's this person, they did it for sure. And Pip feels otherwise. So she chooses for her capstone project during her senior year to look into this murder. And so obviously she starts digging in a little too deep, and people are starting to notice. Well, people, we don't know. Someone is starting to notice, and they don't want her to keep digging much further. So it was really good. Highly recommend it. Gave it 4.5 stars. For a YA novel, it was very, very good. I love that there was mixed media. We saw some text messages. You really had like Pip's like excerpts from her project. And I feel like reading this as an audiobook is amazing, like would be amazing. Like I felt like I heard Pip's voice, even though I wasn't listening to it through an audiobook. Like I felt like Pip had a very distinguished voice, so I feel like I would love to listen to this one, but I also would want to see the mixed media at the same time, so I think it would be a fun book to do in both ways. But highly, highly recommend you check that one out if you have not already. Totally worth the buzz. Oh, I missed one. No. The next book I read was The Operator. I'll leave a picture here. This one was kindly sent to me through William Morrow. Unfortunately, I was not the biggest fan of it, so I did pass my copies on to people who I think will really, really love this story. I had really high expectations for this book, which I think is probably my downfall. I went into it being like, this is going to be the best book ever, and then when it wasn't the best book ever, I immediately just kind of like got taken back. So I kind of blame myself on this one. I think I overhyped this one a little bit too much in my own head. And this one is about a woman who is a telephone operator in the 50s, and you know, you're not supposed to listen in on conversations, but she does, and she hears a secret that's gonna upend her entire world. And it alternates perspectives. It kind of jumps timelines every now and then, which I didn't really appreciate because the timeline jumping was kind of all over the place. Overall, I just wasn't as enthused and engaged as I wanted to be, which made it really difficult for me to read. But I feel like I've seen people give it 4 or 5 star reviews, so I know that it must have been something in my own head. I must have overhyped it. I must have done something to ruin my reading experience of this, because it did have such a good premise and it had such a good potential, and I kind of now being away from it for so long, I totally blame myself for not enjoying that one. But like I said, hopefully it's in good hands. Hopefully those people are loving it, because I feel like it definitely will get the love that it deserves. It just didn't get the love from me, unfortunately. Then the next book I read was Old Fashioned by Candy Steiner. This is the 4th and final book in the Becker Brothers series. I did have the ARC, not this one, but I had the digital version first as a ARC, so I read it as a digital copy, and then this came out shortly after, so I had to buy myself a physical copy. This is the 4th and final book, like I said, in the Becker Brothers series. We are following Jordan, who is the oldest brother. He is adopted, and so I found that really interesting to watch his family dynamic and how he sees his family, and his love with Sydney, who is he is a football coach, and she is his new athletic trainer for his program, and she's got a little girl, and she is full of spunk, and I loved her so much. I basically loved everything about this book. Jordan reminds me of my husband, and so I kept seeing little elements of him in there, just with his like love of his students and coaching and just love of Sydney's daughter. I'm really gonna get emotional. I loved this book, and then we finally get to find out what happens to the Becker's father, because we learned in book 1 that their father died in a really tragic fire accident, and we finally have all the pieces to the puzzle solved in this one, and just the reveals, and just, I know some people felt like it was like too overdramatic and like that shouldn't have been the way it went down, but like I found it really good. I found justice in it. I felt like it was a really, 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 really great way to end the series. When I read On the Rocks, which is book 1, I kept saying, like, this is going to be my favorite book, and, like, nothing, I kept reading, like, the next book, and I was like, but they're no Noah and Ruby, and then I'd read the next one, I was like, they're no Noah and Ruby, and then I read this one, I went, never mind, this one is my new favorite. So, originally, On the Rocks was my favorite, now this one is my favorite, and I highly, highly recommend the series. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have Kindle Unlimited, I highly recommend you pick this series up to do some binge reading, because it's worth it, and you'll fly through it, all 4 of them. Pick this one up. And then I read The Holdout, which I got from Book of the Month again this month. So I got 3 books from Book of the Month this month, and I read 2 of them already. That is The Holdout by Graham Moore. I don't have this one currently because I lent it to my brother-in-law in a whole slew of books. I'm making an entire video of all the books that I gave him, so you can see what I ended up recommending him. But I gave that one to him, so I don't physically have it. But this book is about a woman who is on a jury, and she basically convinces the entire jury, she's the holdout, that he's innocent and that this man did not kill his student. And so the man goes away. Like, Matt goes away. He comes out as innocent. And now it's years later, and they're trying to re-get this jury back together to do kind of like a documentary. And when she's there, like, she's really hesitant about going, and then when she's there, we end up finding out that there's a body that's dead in her room, and obviously eyes point to her, and so we're trying to solve 2 mysteries. We're trying to figure out what happened in the past, but we're also trying to figure out what's currently happening as well, and I love the past perspectives because we got to see all of the jurors' perspectives, and I felt like that was a really interesting way to do it. So, like, in the current moment, we just saw her perspective, but in the past, we saw all the jurors' perspectives, and I had a lot of fun with this one. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Then I hit my probably least favorite book of the entire year so far, and that is The Jetsetters, and this book was Reese Witherspoon's book club pick for the month of March. I've talked at length about this book already in my review, in my currently reads video. I feel like I've just talked about this book nonstop, and I did not care for this one. This one followed a woman who has grown children. She's kind of grown apart from them, and she really wants to kind of come back together with them, so she ends up entering a contest to win a cruise, and she wins this cruise, and so the 4 of them go out onto this Mediterranean cruise, and they all have a million problems. They all ignore all of their million problems. Mom just will completely change the subject if she hears a problem she doesn't want to listen to. It does not handle anything well. And there's some really deep problems that are going on for some of these characters, and it was not handled appropriately at all. These characters are despicable. They are dislikable every step of the way. I did not like this book. I gave it 1 star. It's crazy to me because I've seen so many mixed reviews on this. There's people who 100% agree with me. There's people who love this book and gave it 5 stars. So really, it's up to you. You can try it. Highly recommend you give it like try a chapter thing or try a half a book thing. I don't know, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't for a lot of my friends that I was discussing it with as I was reading it. But that was a journey. Then I read, I tried to read My Dark Vanessa. Hold on, let me try to get it. I don't want to give you my armpit, though. I tried to read My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. DNF'd this one for now. It is about a teacher-student relationship, and I couldn't handle it. It was just too dark for me right now, so I did put it on hold. I got 90 pages in, and I just stopped reading it, and I don't know if I'll ever pick it back up. So we'll see how that is. Then I read His Royal Highness by R.S. Gray. These were the two books that kind of took up that, like, between, like, I finished the Jetsetters the 14th, and this is the book that I finished the 17th, and then this is the book that I finished the 24th. So, like, between those times, that's when I was reading this one in My Dark Vanessa. This book, I feel like I kind of gave it 3.5 stars because I feel like partially I was a little influenced with my, like, slow down reading habit. So I feel like it kind of was the product of that, but I also didn't necessarily love the main character too much. This one, we are following Whitney. If you watched my book haul, her name was Whitney. She has a name. I remembered it after I finished filming. And Derek, when Whitney has a hard time growing up, and she really gets into this fairy tale land, which is basically a fictional Disney World. So, you know, sign me up, right? And she ends up getting into the college program there, where she meets Derek as her mentor, because he is the grandson of the president and runner of this fantasy world. And she has a crush on him, she likes him, but then they end up going their own separate ways because he ends up having to go to London, and they just kind of never really reconvene. And now it's 8 years later, and she is currently like the Cinderella of this world and of this Disneyland park that's not Disneyland. And so she's currently in that role. She has a really close relationship with Derek's grandfather, and he wants more for her, but she's like set on, I'm good being the princess. And Derek comes home finally, and his grandfather wants him to step up, but the board of trustees kind of don't trust him for some reason, so he decides to make him her Prince Charming, and like, you gotta prove yourself, take like the lowest of the low role, and maybe they'll be okay with you taking over for me eventually. So it's their second chance romance. It was really sweet. I loved Derek. I loved the setting. I loved everything like that. It's just for some reason she was very immature to me, and I didn't love her as a main character. If I loved her, if I didn't have as many problems with her, this would have easily been a 5-star read. But for some reason, she just irked me, and it made it hard to want to keep picking it up just because I didn't love her. So yeah, I still enjoyed it. It's just, it wasn't my favorite. So 3.5 stars. And I will definitely want to read more R.S. Gray in the future. Then I was realizing that I was really able to read a lot more if I read through my Kindle. So I decided to pick up some Netgalley reads. So I picked up Unfollow Me by Charlotte Duckworth, and I gave this book 3 stars. This is a thriller novel about a mommy vlogger, basically. She just suddenly disappears. All of her social media gets deleted, and she kind of drops off the face of the earth. And these two women, we're following their two perspectives. They're not connected, but they are very invested in wanting to know what happened to this mommy vlogger, so we're kind of following them through what's going on and figuring out what happened to the mommy vlogger, what's going on in their own life, and it was okay. I didn't love it. It didn't feel very thrillery. It was more like a mystery, and I just felt like, I don't know, I wanted more from it. There's a character with infertility issues in here, and I don't love how that was handled at all. The ending also just felt kind of very lackluster. When we finally found out what happened to the social media person, it just kind of felt like, okay, and that was it. So, didn't love it. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It came out in March. I think it was out in the UK previously, so it is out in the world. It is available if you are still interested. I've seen people give it 4 stars, so I know other people love it. It wasn't for me. And then I read Something She's Not Telling Us by Darcy Bell. This one comes out April 7th, so it's not out quite yet, but almost. Maybe it is by the time I upload this video. But this one, I wanted to read because I really liked A Simple Favor, which came out, the movie came out last year. I don't know when the book necessarily came out. But I liked that one, so I wanted to give her new release a try. This one is following a woman, and she kind of has it all. She's got the baby, she's got the husband, she's got the nice house, she's got the nice job, and her brother kind of is a recovering alcoholic. He always dates all these trashy women, and he's bringing another woman around, and obviously that's going to cause problems. We end up finding out that our main character's daughter gets kidnapped, and obviously we look towards the brother's girlfriend, and we're alternating perspectives between like what's going on when they find out that the daughter was abducted and like when they first meet the girlfriend. And it was okay. The pacing started off really strong, and then it got kind of wonky, and then by the end it came back together and started going really quickly, but then it like had no ending. The characters were kind of unlikable with no ending. There was nothing to really like bring it back together for me. I turned the page on my Kindle and I was like, okay, what's happening next? And then it was like acknowledgments. I went, there's no ending. It just like felt like it was like all for nothing. So unfortunately, gave that one also 3 stars. Then the next book I did read through my Kindle, but I do own the physical copy, and that is Baking with a Rockstar by Jasmine Miller. This book I read as a physical I read it on my Kindle, but I own it because I was in that moment really into my Kindle, but I felt like I was, obviously the Netgalley reads were perfect and I needed to read them, but I also felt like I was doing nothing for my physical TBR, so I wanted to pick up something that I could. So this one was on Kindle Unlimited, so I was like, I can kind of do 2 birds, 1 stone. And this one was a really sweet read too. I gave this one 4 stars. This follows a girl. She has a daughter, and she is moving from the city to California. She's living with this family friend, and she's about to open a bakery, and she's really trying to like restart her life. We know she's escaping something. We're just not sure what. And then this rock star is coming home, and come to find out, it's actually the grandma. He's actually the grandson of the woman that our main character is staying with, and they're actually staying in his house. And it's their love story. They kind of make a deal where like he'll help her with her bakery if she is like his muse, and then they have a really good love connection. I loved his connection with her daughter. It was so sweet, and like the daughter in this book is about 10 months old, and my daughter's like almost 7 months old, so like I kind of felt like I was seeing my husband interact with our daughter, and just, I don't know, it was really sweet. I really, really liked this one. I gave this one 4 stars. He's not the typical rock star. He's very family-oriented and a very sweet man, and I really enjoyed this one. Then after that, during that, concurrently, I was reading Una Out of Order. I was listening to it as an audiobook because I was able to get it through BookSparks. I'm a member of BookSparks, and they sent out an email that was like, you can pick one of these 5 books from Macmillan Audio / Libroform. So I was, not Libroform, Libro FM. So I was like, okay, I'll try it, which I'll leave a link down below. I really liked using that as an audiobook resource. When you buy a membership through there, they actually support local bookstores. You get 1 credit for $14.99 a month, which goes to 1 book. So like an audiobook for $14.99 is not bad at all, because that's the price of a regular book. And it goes to help a good local bookstore. So highly, highly recommend it. So I'll leave my link down below if you are interested in Libro FM. And like I said, it was a great platform to listen to this audiobook from. And you know me, I don't like audiobooks. So for me to promote that, it must be good. So I listened to Una, and I was nervous because it was really hyped on Bookstagram. Not so much here because mostly BookTube is YA. But it was highly promoted on Bookstagram. So I kind of was like hesitant. I was like, I'm going to be let down, but it ended up being a really good read. We're following Una on her eve of her 19th birthday. Her birthday is on New Year's. So we always follow her on New Year's Eve. And this is New Year's Eve. She's about to turn 19. And then suddenly she wakes up in her 51-year-old body. And she's like, whoa, what happened? She now finds out that she's going to spend a year in her life as a 51-year-old. And when midnight hits, she's then going to bounce to another age. It might be older, it might be younger, she doesn't know. And that is her new life. Every year she wakes up, like New Year's Day, she will always wake up in a different age. And she has no idea what age, what she's like in that year. People won't tell her because they want her to be able to experience and live her own life the way she's meant to live it. And I found this book really good. I thought it was going to be confusing with all the bouncing around, and it really wasn't. She has a really great message in the end. I cried like a baby by the end. there were so many jaw-dropping moments by the end, and I really enjoyed this one and highly recommend it. 4 stars. Then I read The Affair by J.L. Berg because, again, this was another one that I pre-ordered back in February, so as part of my reading books that I pre-order in a relatively soon fashion, I had to read this one. And this is a romance as well, and we are following our main character. Her father, she's recently divorced, within the past year, divorced, and her father recently passes away, and her mom just kind of like, bye, I'm going to go live with your brother, leaves her the business, leaves her home, bye, see ya. So now she's like left in shambles, like, how do I live my life? How do I run this business? What do I do? And in walks her brother-in-law, and it's their romance. And she also finds a journal from her grandmother alluding to the fact that the past might be repeating itself. And I really liked it because when you read the back and you're like, ooh, the brother-in-law, you're like, ooh, this must be like taboo and just like weird, and it wasn't. It was actually a really beautiful romance. It's developed very nicely and sweetly. Like, it's not, it doesn't feel dirty. It's not like, ooh, the dirty brother-in-law. Like, it felt very sweet and handled appropriately, and I really enjoyed this one as well, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. You will also cry with this one. I love crying, apparently. And then the last book I squeezed in, I'm counting it as March. I had 70 pages to go that I finished in April, but I'm counting it as March because I read a majority of it in March, and I didn't feel, I was going to finish it in March, but then I didn't feel good, and that's why I went to sleep instead of finishing it. So, in all intents and purposes, I read it in March. And that is The Open Book by Jessica Simpson. I kind of broke my book buying ban and bought this, but all my nonfiction that I have right now is depressing AF. And with everything going on, I just needed something to uplift me, and I ended up picking this up, and I'm glad that I did. I wish I listened to it as an audiobook. I heard she narrates it, and I bet you it's so much better like that. I didn't give it a rating because, you know me, I always feel biased for rating nonfiction. It's 400 pages. It felt like 400 pages to me. In the beginning, the first 100 like flew, and then by the time I got to like John Mayer's relationship, so this starts when Jessica is like not even famous, and then we go through the whole like newlywed show, and we finally get to John Mayer, and I was just like, oh my god, how much longer? Because then it just gets very wordy. Jessica talks to you like she is like literally talking to her friend over drinks, even though like now she's, I don't know, I think she's sober now, so she's not drinking, but it just felt like a lot of like, let me tell you all my details because you're my friend, and like she would refer to you as you, like I would have invited you, but I didn't know your phone number, and so she talks to you. So I feel like listening to this as an audiobook must have been phenomenal. I still had a good time reading it. It's just, that's a long memoir for somebody like Jessica. But I did learn a lot. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know about her, and just, I think the fun thing about reading celebrity memoirs is you get a window into their life, and you see things that you didn't want to see maybe. Like, I didn't realize how tumultuous her relationship with Nick was. I was just like, I was devastated when they broke up. And to see how they were together, I was like, why were you even married in the first place? Like, so very eye-opening. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that was the last book that I read in March. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's any new books that you discover that you want to read now or anything. Let me know what your favorite book that you read in March was. It's a toss-up. I had so many 4.5 and like almost 5-star reads that it's hard to pick a favorite for sure. So even though I did have a sprinkle of like books, I had a lot of really good ones as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.